Howdy there, YouTube, and welcome to the K30 Crazy channel. If any of you've seen my recent video where I believe it was called Let's Cruise and Talk About Project Vehicles, I talked about my Blazer, and one of the things I want to do to it is, here pretty soon anyway, is wire it for trailer. I have a 4 flat on it right now, but I'd like to add it so I can pull a trailer with brakes. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is vehicle trailer wiring basics. So, let's get started. Right here, I have a picture of each of the 2 most popular sockets you'll see on trailers today, and that's what you're going to need to wire your vehicle for. The one on the left is the 4 flat, and the one on the right is called the 7 blade, which is a round connector with 7 spade-like connectors in it. We're going to start off with the 4 flat. The 4 flat, as you see right there, it gets its name because it has 4 contacts in a line on a flat connector. So 4 flat. It is found on lighter trailers, lighter utility trailers, enclosed trailers, stuff like that. A lot of boat trailers have them. And it's found on heavier trailers that have surge brakes. And what surge brakes are is, instead of having electric brakes, it has hydraulic brakes like a car, and the master cylinder is the tongue of the trailer. And as you slow down, the trailer pushes into your vehicle. That forces brake fluid back to your brakes, stops the trailer. So it doesn't have a brake wire, so it doesn't need another wire for that. The 4 flat has 4 functions. It has your white, which is the ground, and that is the single pole. It has 3 paired together, then 1 by itself, so you don't flip it around and short stuff out. The 1 by itself is the white wire. It is the ground. The one next to that is your brown wire. That is for your tail lights, your license plate lights, marker lights, all that fun stuff. Left, turn signal, and stop lights are after that. That is your yellow wire. And the last one is the green wire, which is your right, turn signal, and stop lights. The 4 flat comes in a couple different styles of harnesses for wiring it to your vehicle, and it all depends on what you have. These 2 right here are more designed for vehicles with a 2-circuit system. And what I mean by that is your turn signals and your brake lights are on the same they're the same lights. So you have a light for your tail lights, then you have a circuit for your turn signals and brakes. And these are also designed for vehicles with incandescent lights. And we'll explain the difference here shortly. Now, the one on the left is just a pigtail, and that is nice for a situation which I'll explain in the next slide or two. Or if you don't have anything back there, where you have to find each individual circuit itself and tap into it because you have nothing. The one on the right is nice if you can find it for your vehicle. Some vehicles, they don't have it. Some vehicles, they have, like what we'll talk about shortly, and the proper harness is the one on the left. But the one on the right is nice because you don't have to cut wires, splice wires, and anything, which is nice because each time you cut and splice a wire is a chance for a spot for corrosion and a short and all that fun stuff, which, if that happens, your lights aren't going to work, which is a pain. And how these work are, you find the circuit for your lights in the back of your vehicle, you unplug it, you plug that in its place in each side, and it's just a T connector. It's a splice. It's very nice, handy, and I like to use those whenever possible. Now there's another type of harness, and these are your specialty harnesses. And this is what I'm talking. These are for your vehicles like have like a 3-circuit system. And what that is instead of having your stop and turn signals share a light, there's a third light. So you have your tail lights circuit, you have your brake light circuit, and then there's a third light, usually amber, and that's your turn signal. Trailers aren't wired like that, so you have to, basically what this is a relay of sorts, and that turn signal wire will connect to the turn signal wire on your car, but come to this box and connect to the brake light circuit on the trailer as well, just like because the trailer only has 2 circuits for that. A tail light and then a brake and turn. So that fixes that. Another style, which is what's pictured right here, is a powered harness or converter. And this is for vehicles with LED lights. The reason for this is trailers, no matter whether you're running LED or incandescent lights, they add an additional load to the vehicle's electrical system. And if your vehicle has LED taillights and all that, that circuit's not made to handle that extra draw. So how this works is that black box is basically a relay. And you connect your wires to the wires in your vehicle, just like normal. But that little black wire at the left top there, what that does, you send that straight to the battery of your vehicle. So, as I said before, that black box is basically a big relay. So when you hit your turn signal, or brake lights or whatever, that circuit comes into the black box. And what that black box does is trigger the relay, and it pulls the power from the battery directly to the black box and out to the trailer. That takes a lot of the load off of your vehicle's light system, and so you have less problems with that, and then you get nicer, crisper lights because the lights are getting all the power they need on the trailer straight from the vehicle's battery. So that's nice. Now, hooking these up, you're going to have to look for stuff in the back. This is the harness splice. Now, my S10 Blazer, it's an 04, it has, like this picture here, a bundle of wires in the frame rail. Now, your vehicle might not have this. In that case, you could look for that T-splice like I showed you before. That would be very nice to plug in and be done. Now, instead of the T-splice, my Blazer has this, and I just use that pigtail, and you splice it in with butt connectors, and you're done. Now, if your vehicle does not have either of those, you're going to have to dig around in your harness. You're going to have to print out some wiring schematics, and you're going to have to find each individual wire in that harness and tap into it and use that pigtail, which it can be done. It's not the best way to go about it, but it's doable and it works. As I said before, this is how mine was, and it's good. So, next we're going to move on to the 7 blade. And as you see there's your 7 blade. It has 7 wires, hence the number 7. And it is in a round connector with spade-like prongs on it. And the center pole, number 7, is a small round conductor. So, as I said before, the 4 flat had your ground circuit, your tail light and running light circuit, your left turn and stop, and your right turn and stop. So that's 4. The 7 obviously has 3 more. The first one is trailer brakes. That one's pretty self-explanatory. You know, it's what powers the electric brakes on your trailer. We'll get more into that here shortly. The second one is your auxiliary 12-volt and charging. What that is for is your breakaway. What your breakaway is if for some reason your trailer with brakes comes disconnected from your vehicle, there's a little cable connected to your hitch, and it pulls a plastic little tab, and it connects the circuit on the trailer, and it activates the trailer brakes to help stop it and keep it from rolling away. That charges that battery to power the brakes for that. The auxiliary also comes into play for like an enclosed trailer, where you can have little shop lights and interior lights inside so you can see at night, or you could use it as a charge wire for, say, the battery to run a winch if you have like a car trailer or something. It's just a little trickle charger. It's not going to charge a dead battery, but it'll maintain it while you're driving and using the trailer. And the last wire, that center pole, number 7, that is typically wired in as backup lights. Now, a lot of trailers, most trailers, do not have backup lights. You can find them on some trailers like goosenecks. They're more prevalent on RVs and like horse trailers where it's an option, you know, because it's hard to see, especially in the dark back in trailers and stuff. However, you don't have to wire that up like that. You can use it for whatever you want. For example, if you had work lights or strobe lights or something on your trailer and you wanted to wire that to that, you could run a wire to that number 7, and on the vehicle you can run a wire to a switch. So you could be driving, or say you have it wired up to work lights. You know, you want to back in your driveway, flip the switch and back on in. You can turn your work lights on like that without even having to get out. It's pretty cool, pretty useful. It has 1,000 things you could use it for if you wanted to. This one is typically found on trailers with brakes, electric brakes, or electric over hydraulic, heavier trailers. Now let's move on to the next one. The brake controller. As I said before, that 7-way gives you the option for brakes. There are other wiring connectors that give you the options for brakes, but this is the most common anymore. To utilize the brakes, you're going to have a brake controller. Now, if you're wiring your own vehicle for trailers wiring, I can guarantee you probably do not have a trailer brake controller in your vehicle from the factory. Because if they had that, you'd have wiring for trailer wiring, plug in the back. So, you're going to have to get this. That is required to use brakes. There's a few different types of trailer brake controllers. You know, we're not going to get into that today. You can do a quick Google search and figure that out for yourself if you are so inclined. They have cheap ones, they have expensive ones. There's a few different types of how they work, and it all just depends on how much you're going to tow, weight-wise and distance-wise. You know, if you're going to be towing every day or a couple times a week or month, you're going to want a nicer brake controller than if you're just pulling a small trailer, you know, once or twice a year. So you're going to have to wire this stuff in. And to do that, there's a few different ways. Some vehicles come with a tow prep package. And what that does is it makes it easier to set your vehicle up to do this stuff. These pictures here, I believe, are from a newer GM vehicle. I know that harness is for GM. If you look at the right picture there's a space on that junction block with a red rectangle around it. If you look carefully at the picture on the left, there's a tan plug. And that plug will plug right into that little spot right there. If you look at the other connector on that harness and go back to the trailer brake controller, it plugs right into that trailer brake controller. So with tow prep package, it could be quite easy. All you'd have to do is plug that in one end to the junction block, plug the other end into the brake controller, mount it, screw it down, or Velcro, however you want to do it, and be done. That's it. Now, with the prep package, there might be a little bit more work to do for this, and I'll show you that right now. Just because it's there does not mean it's active. It's not usable. Those wires aren't going to anything. They don't want power going to them and starting a fire or a short or whatever, a spark. So it might be there, but you might have to do some digging. Like here, I believe this is for a newer Suburban as well. You're going to have to dig around to find wires. And you're going to have to take the brake controller power wire that goes to that junction block, and you're going to have to connect it to the power stud here on the fuse box. You may also have to do the same for your 12-volt auxiliary power wire and hook it to that stud as well. That's, again, just so you don't have power going to something that has nothing on it. You want to be safe. Now we move on to vehicles without the prep package. Some of these newer vehicles don't come with them. Some vehicles they sell hitches for, are smaller that the manufacturer doesn't necessarily, most people aren't going to tow with them. Like a Honda Civic or something, for example. I have a buddy that he bought a hitch. They sell hitches for him. He had to do all his own wiring for it because they don't sell stuff for it, He was just pulling a little one motorcycle trailer, which it was capable of doing, and it did quite well. So you might have to do this work yourself. Now, that didn't have any brakes on that trailer, so he just wired in a 4-flat and hit the road. He was good to go. But, as I said, you're going to have to wire it all yourself. And to make it easier on you, I'd buy the kits. They're inexpensive. It comes with everything you need. And it's just easier. So on the right here, you have a harness. If you look carefully, that socket matches that small socket on the previous harness I showed you, and it plugs right into the brake controller. But if you look, it's missing that tan one. That tan plug plugged right into that junction block. But again, we don't have that, so it's just terminated wires. And that's for you to splice up with butt connectors. It's quite simple. On the left here is, all these products are from Kurt Manufacturing, I'm showing you. This is a kit to install your trailer brake controller. Comes with zip ties and butt connectors, the circuit breaker, and the wiring. And we'll get into the wiring a little bit more here in a minute. But it's got the blue wire, which is your trailer brake wire, and this gray wire is 2 wires inside another sheath, and that helps A, keep it organized, B, adds extra protection. It's called duplex wire, hence 2 wires, duplex wire. So we'll get into the wiring here next. This is straight out of the instructions for that kit from Kurt. Now, before we start, there is a little thing down here in the corner, left corner, for late 80s and early 90s Ford vehicles, but we're not going to worry about that. Let's look at the picture. On the left, you have a car battery. Upper right, you have the trailer brake controller. Center right, you have the rear plug at the vehicle. Lower right, you have the brake pedal with the brake switch. So, you're going to have 4 wires on your trailer brake controller. As I said, that blue one is your brakes. It connects to the blue wire on that little pigtail harness. You run that out through your firewall, your floor, through your grommet, something like that, and out to the rear of your vehicle for the plug. That one's pretty simple. Next is your red wire. That is your signal wire, your stop signal wire. And what you're going to do there, in most cases, is just tap that into the cold side of your brake switch. The cold side is the side that is not getting power until you step on the brake pedal. So when you step on the brake pedal, it'll send power to that wire to the brake controller. Now you have 2 more wires. That's what's in your duplex wire that I talked about earlier. There's a black wire and a white wire. Your white is ground. That's simple. Just splice it into that little pigtail harness. Run the other end to your battery ground. And cinch her down on there. The black one is your 12-volt power to your brake controller. That one's almost as easy. You tap it into that pigtail on one end. On the other end, you tap to the battery. Now, in between those, you have a circuit breaker, a 30 amp circuit breaker. And you're going to want to splice that into that black wire, preferably as close to the battery as you can get it. And all that does is, it's like a fuse, but it resets itself. So if it overheats, pulls to so much current, it'll pop it so you don't melt wires or break anything. And once it cools down, it'll snap back closed and you'll have brakes again. Now, how a trailer brake controller works is it's kind of like a relay, kind of like a potentiometer. It is a relay in that it uses low current to trigger it, and that is your brake pedal. Hit the brakes, it sends wires through the red wire to the brake controller. That tells the brake controller, hey, you're stopping, we need to send power to the trailer to slow it down. It'll pull power from the black wire to the controller, send it out to the blue wire, back to the plug, back to your vehicle, to the trailer. That's how it works as a relay. Now, how it works as a potentiometer is with your brake gain, if you've ever heard of that. And that is your adjustment to control how much power is going to it, to your brakes. You can turn it down, you can turn it up. The higher you go, the more braking force you're going to have, the more power it's going to send out. It'll lock up your trailer tires if you have enough of it. So that's pretty much it for the trailer brake controller wiring. So we're going to move on to the rear socket. Again, I'd buy a kit. It comes with whatever you need for the most part. It looks good, like that, nice fit and finish. This particular plug looks like it's a pull-lock plug. If you pay attention to any of the new vehicles that have towing plugs on them already, looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? In fact, that is an OEM replacement. You can use it as an OEM replacement for a lot of those vehicles. So I like it because it's common. If it breaks, you can go to any dealer and pick one up. You know, might bug you like, oh, what vehicle is it? It doesn't have. Just tell them you need one of those, and they'll get it for you. Also, it looks nice. It looks factory, which to me, I like stuff looking like it belongs there. It also makes your life a whole lot easier. You're not having to find parts and rig stuff together. The other nice feature is, if you see, there's two little doors on it. Now what that is the one on the right, that is your 4 flat. The one on your left is your 7 blade. So you can pull trailers with both style harnesses, and you don't have to fuss around with adapter plugs and all that other junk, which usually break, or you can't find them, or they're corroded and junky, and your lights aren't working. It's just a headache that you don't need, and it's simple, Just spend a little bit of money. Don't skimp here, because it's a safety thing in the long run, really. Now, to wire all this stuff up in the back, again, you're going to have to look for some harness splicing. Now, just because your vehicle doesn't have a tow prep package doesn't mean this wiring's here. Like I said before, my Blazer had one. It does not have the prep package. It had the 4 wires in the back. Now, again, just because your vehicle does have a tow prep package doesn't mean it has all the wires. You may have the 4 wires there, which will get you your basics, but you need to run the other ones. Or if it's like my 86 Chevy, it has nothing. I had to run it all. I had to figure it all out. It's simple, though. So to get started on your 7-way, I'd look at the 4-way and get that started. Like I said before, I'd look for the pigtails in the back. If not, I'd try to use the T-splitter just to try to keep things more tidy, more sealed up. You don't want wires getting corroded and all that jazz. But sometimes you just have to cut in the wires and splice them and make it work. So we're going to continue on here to the socket wiring. You're going to have 7 functions. Your tail running, 12-volt auxiliary in charge, your right stop turn, your left stop turn, ground, backup lights or whatever, and your trailer brakes. Now, these are color-coded here. They tend to be fairly similar, but some manufacturers screw up colors. They mix stuff up. So your best bet is don't go off the colors. Go off position. Take yourself a little test meter for, continuity, and figure out which wire goes to what spade on that plug and start there. Just to make stuff simple and make sure it's going where it's supposed to. If you have that wiring there, you'll be fine. Just connect them and go. If you're going to have to run your own wiring, which in most instances you're going to have to run at least a couple. On the left-hand side there, I have a list of each circuit and what your minimum gauge should be for the wires. And a quick note I just want to make on the 12-volt one is you're going to want to run a circuit breaker on that, just so you don't melt wires, cause shorts, and all that stuff. You don't want your vehicle burning down and whatever. I'd run a 30 amp circuit breaker with a 10 gauge wire. You could jump up to an 8 gauge wire and get away with a 40 amp if you wanted to, but I ran 10 gauge on mine. It's fine. I haven't had any issues with it. Now, if another thing you might want to look at is if you keep your trailer connected to your vehicle a lot, add a relay. A 30 amp relay, and connect it to something that's ignition hot. So, an ignition trigger. So, instead of having the wire run to your battery directly, it runs to this relay, and it won't send power to your trailer to charge the batteries until you turn your ignition on. And what that'll do is it just helps to keep your car battery from draining. You don't want to drain and kill your battery or get stuck somewhere. So it's fairly simple. The last thing I want to talk about is fit and finish. I think in some ways this is the most important part, because if you just hack stuff together, it doesn't look good, and that's one of my pet peeves. Is it needs to look good. It needs to look like it belongs there. It needs, and not even, some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. It does, because if it's tidied up and done well, it's gonna last. It's gonna be reliable. It's gonna be safe. You're not gonna have any issues with it. So if you look in those pictures, they just had normal butt connectors. Go to the parts store, spend a few dollars, and get these butt connectors like I have in the center. They are built with shrink tubing, so you just, use a heat gun, or if you don't have a heat gun, a Bic lighter or a blowtorch will work just fine. Also, use wire loom. Use something to keep the wires from rubbing on stuff, because, again, if a wire rubs through, it'll short, could cause a fire, your lights aren't going to work, you're going to be scratching your head and getting angry, screwing around trying to figure out what's wrong. Just spend a few dollars, get some wire loom, tidy it up, make it look nice, protect those wires. And of course, use zip ties. I don't like wrapping wires around the trailer hitch because it's too long. No. Tidy it up. Get it bundled up, tucked away, because all this will prevent your wires from getting broken, corroding, and all that stuff. You don't want to have to worry about your trailer lights. You want it to function when you need to, and that just take a few extra dollars, a few extra minutes, make it look nice, make it work. So that's it for the vehicle trailer wiring basics. I hope this could help you. It may seem, I know a lot of people don't like wiring. It may seem challenging. Just take your time, figure it out, take lots of notes, look at stuff, do your research. You can do it. It'll save you some money in the long run, having to pay shops to install this stuff for you. It's not that bad. So I hope this helps. Until next time, stay crazy. Have a good one.